The man behind the counter. The rain had not stopped for 3 hours. The clouds had turned the sky into a dull gray blanket, the kind that made even bright lights look tired. Sundar Pichai, CEO of one of the biggest companies on earth, was in the back seat of a black electric sedan, headed back to his hotel after a long, exhausting panel in downtown San Francisco. His tie was off, his collar loose, and his thoughts far from technology. He stared out the window, watching the rain tap against the glass in its steady rhythm. He needed something warm, something simple. "Can we stop for coffee?" he asked his driver, who nodded and pulled off into a strip of stores nestled between a gas station and a bank. The place wasn't anything fancy, just a regular McDonald's, lit in fluorescent yellow and red, standing alone in the middle of the drizzle. Sundar smiled faintly. It reminded him of his early days in America. Back when he was a student at Stanford and every dollar meant something, he had eaten more $2 cheeseburgers than he could count. He stepped inside, the smell of fried potatoes, grease, and artificial cheese wrapped around him like a childhood memory that didn't belong to him. It was quiet, just one other customer sitting with headphones in, and a few workers behind the counter, tired but polite. He waited patiently in line. One of the workers was wiping the counter when another came out from the back. The man who stepped forward to the register looked different. Not in appearance, he wore the same red and yellow uniform, but in presence. There was something calm, even centered about him. His back was straight. His voice was measured and deep. His eyes, those eyes, looked like they had seen more than burgers and fries. "What can I get for you today, sir?" the man asked. Sundar glanced up from the menu board. The man's voice had that unmistakable clarity, like he was used to speaking to people who listened. He looked maybe 35, maybe younger. His hair slicked back but uneven, like he'd done it in a hurry. There were faint oil stains on his apron, and yet he had a presence. It was subtle, like an engineer hiding in plain sight. "Just coffee," Sundar said. "Black. No sugar." The man nodded and began preparing it, moving with precision. Not the kind of practiced motion that came from muscle memory and food service, but something else. His fingers moved like they remembered algorithms. "Not ketchup packets, long day?" the man asked, handing him the steaming paper cup. "You could say that." Sundar paused. "You've got a good voice for management." The man smiled, just barely. "Funny. I used to hear that all the time. Not so much these days." There was something in the way he said it. Not bitterness exactly, more like acceptance, mixed with a trace of quiet pain. Sundar felt the pull of curiosity, but he didn't want to pry. "Ever work in tech?" he asked casually. The man leaned against the counter, wiped his hands on a towel, and chuckled. "You could say that." There it was again, that phrase, said twice, with entirely different meaning. The first had been vague, the second full of regret. "Mind if I ask where?" Sundar said, sipping his coffee. The man paused, then said slowly, "Tesla, systems integration, powertrain division." Sundar blinked. That was no small job. That wasn't a coder fresh out of school. Powertrain integration was complex. It required mastery of multiple engineering disciplines. "I worked on the early models," the man added, looking out the window. "Model S, back when we didn't know if it would even work." "And now you're..." Sundar's voice trailed off. He didn't mean it to sound judgmental. "Flipping hash browns," the man said, finishing the sentence with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. They stood there in silence. "I'm sorry," Sundar said quietly. The man shrugged. "Don't be. Not your fault. Layoffs, downsizing, divorce, some bad calls, it adds up. Then suddenly you're wearing a paper hat instead of a badge. There was a story here, a big one." And Sundar didn't just hear stories, he felt them. He had built a career on understanding people, not just products. "What's your name?" Sundar asked. "Aaron," the man replied. "Aaron Becker." "Well, Aaron," Sundar said, "I think there's more to you than this counter." "I used to think so too," Aaron replied without sarcasm. And just then, The drive-through bell dinged. Aaron gave a small nod and turned to work, slipping back into the role of fast food server. But something had shifted in Sundar. He wasn't just here for coffee anymore. He walked back to his car in the rain, slower this time. His thoughts were no longer on quarterly reports or keynote speeches. They were on Aaron Becker, because something inside him whispered that this man's story wasn't over yet. And maybe, just maybe, he was supposed to be part of what came next. The secret in the notebook. The next morning, Sundar sat in his sweet, untouched breakfast going cold beside a perfectly folded newspaper. His mind was elsewhere. Aaron Becker. The name kept looping in his head like a broken algorithm. He had met countless people in his life. Innovators, dreamers, billionaires, and hoodies. But there was something different about Aaron. Not just what he had done, but what he had lost. And even more, what he might still carry. He couldn't explain it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was empathy. Or maybe it was the kind of invisible thread that pulls people together for a reason they don't understand until much later. Sundar opened his laptop and typed Aaron Becker Tesla. Dozens of LinkedIn profiles popped up. None matched the face. Google returned articles with the name, but nothing that fit the man behind the McDonald's counter. No patents, no conference talks. It was like someone had carefully erased him. Shadow of a man who once stood in the light. Later that day, Sundar returned to the same McDonald's. It was quieter this time, and Aaron was wiping down a table in the corner. He didn't look surprised to see him. "Back for another coffee?" Aaron asked without turning around. "No," Sundar replied. "Back for a conversation." Aaron sighed and sat across from him, folding the towel like it was a security blanket. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was thick, full of unspoken things. "Why are you here?" Aaron finally asked. "Because I don't believe in wasted minds," Sundar said. Aaron gave a small laugh. "That's a nice phrase. Sounds like something you'd say on a stage in Davos." "It is," Sundar admitted. "But it's also true." Aaron looked away. Something was bubbling just beneath the surface. Not anger, not pride. Something deeper. "Do you want the real answer?" Aaron asked. "Always," Sundar said. Aaron reached into his backpack and pulled out a tattered black notebook. Its cover was cracked, the edges curled from years of use. He placed it gently on the table like it was a fragile artifact. "This," he said, "is the reason I'm not at Tesla anymore." Sundar opened the notebook. Page after page filled with diagrams, sketches, handwritten equations, and strange, beautiful models. The kind of work you'd expect to see from a cross between an inventor and a visionary. "What is this?" Sundar whispered. "A battery system," Aaron said softly. "Multi-layered, low-density, self-cooling. Designed for rural solar grids." I pitched it to the board. Elon liked it. Then it disappeared. A month later, something very close to it showed up in a prototype they said came from another team. His voice trembled, not from fear but from exhaustion. I raised concerns. Got labeled unstable, went from lead engineer to a cautionary tale. And just like that, I was gone. Sundar closed the notebook. His eyes met Aaron's. "Did you try to fight it?" "Yes," Aaron said, "but you don't win when you're alone." And then he added, almost as an afterthought, "I wasn't just pushed out of the company. I lost my marriage, my savings, my confidence, everything." Sundar leaned back. This wasn't just a story of professional betrayal, it was a slow collapse of identity. "You still have the plans?" "Every page," Aaron said. "I work here because I need to eat, but my mind, it's still in that notebook." And that's when Sundar knew. This wasn't charity. This wasn't sympathy. This was opportunity. He stood up. "Can you be at my office tomorrow?" Aaron hesitated. "Why?" "Because I want to see what happens when the right people are finally in the right room," Sundar said. "And because I don't think your story is done being written." Aaron looked at him for a long time. Something flickered in his eyes. Not hope, not yet, but maybe the first spark of something close. "I'll be there," he said. As Sundar walked out of the restaurant, he didn't see the assistant manager step out of the back room, a short man in his late 40s with a Bluetooth earpiece and suspicious eyes. He watched Sundar leave, then pulled out his phone. "You're not going to believe who just walked in," he whispered, "and what he's poking around about." The meeting and the memory. Aaron stood in front of the Google campus like a man stepping back into a life he wasn't sure he still belonged to. The last time he'd walked into a corporate office, it had ended with a conference room full of suits giving him polite nods and cold eyes. They'd thanked him for his service and escorted him out like a package with no return address. Now, here he was again. Same nerves, same silence in his gut. But something was different this time. This time, someone had opened a door. Sundar. Met him at the lobby personally, which already felt like a sign that things were not going to be normal. CEOs didn't do that. They didn't come downstairs. They didn't greet men in thrift store jackets with grease under their fingernails. And yet Sundar was there, with that same calm, quiet curiosity that Aaron had seen behind the McDonald's counter. "You came," Sundar said, as if it wasn't obvious. "I almost didn't," Aaron replied, following him inside. "My brain came. The rest of me's still not sure." They walked through glass corridors and sleek walls of innovation. Open, offices, whiteboards filled with ideas, people moving like thoughts. For Aaron, it felt like watching a movie of a world he used to belong to. "You still carry that notebook?" Sundar asked as they stepped into a private conference room. Aaron nodded. He pulled it out carefully like a relic and placed it on the table. Sundar didn't open it this time. Instead, he slid a tablet across the table. "We scanned it," he said. "The whole thing. My team's been reviewing it all night. What you built, it's more than a battery system. It's a new way of thinking about energy flow. It's clean, elegant, decentralized, and scalable." Aaron just blinked. "So you believe me?" Sundar leaned forward. "I don't just believe you. I think you're 10 years ahead of the curve. And I want to help you build it." That moment, that sentence. It hit Aaron like a wave. After years of being dismissed, forgotten, looked through, someone finally saw him, the version of him that still believed in possibilities. "I don't know if I can lead a team again," Aaron said honestly. "Then don't," Sundar replied. "Just lead the idea. We'll follow." But before Aaron could say another word, the door opened. A man stepped inside, mid-40s, pressed shirt, clipboard in hand, eyes like cold steel. "Mr. Becker," he said smoothly, "you've been requested to attend a short compliance briefing before we proceed." Aaron looked confused. Sundar looked concerned. But the man had credentials. He wore the badge. He spoke the language of authority. "Standard security protocol," he added. "Won't take more than 10 minutes, Sundar hesitated. "I wasn't told about this. Must have been added last minute," the man replied with a practiced smile. "You know how legal can be." Aaron followed reluctantly. The hallway they walked down didn't feel like the others. Fewer people, colder lighting, narrower space, and then the man opened a side door. Not a briefing room, not even close. A small windowless office. A single chair. No laptop. Just a plain table. "Sit," the man said. Aaron didn't. "What is this?" he asked, voice sharpening. The man pulled something from his coat. A photo. Worn, old, and unmistakable. "You remember this?" he asked, placing it on the table. Aaron stared at it. It was a team photo. His team. From Tesla. Back when they believed in each other. Back when the lab smelled like metal and ambition. Aaron's smile was big, confident, standing next to a woman with sharp eyes and an arm around his shoulder. "Where did you get this?" Aaron whispered. The man sat across from him. His voice dropped to something softer, more dangerous. "You weren't just working on batteries, Aaron. You were working on something you shouldn't have, and some people don't want that brought back." Aaron's pulse kicked up. His chest felt tight. "That project was classified." "Exactly," the man said. "So ask yourself, are you ready to wake up ghosts?" Aaron stood. Tell Sundar I'm done. I shouldn't have come. But the man only smiled again. You walked back into this world, Aaron. Now you have to choose. Stay and risk everything, or leave and let someone else decide how your story ends. Aaron walked out of the room, in silence, and he never saw the small black device the man slid into his pocket. A tracker. A fire in the wire, Aaron didn't go home. He didn't go back to work, he didn't even check his phone. Instead, he walked, miles through the city, hood up, mind spinning like a fan blade on overdrive. The photo, the threat, the voice that sounded too calm to be a bluff. Someone knew, someone had been watching. And it wasn't Sundar. He ended up at a rundown laundromat on 24th, the kind where the machines rattle like they're chewing scrap metal, and the vending machine only works if you kick it first. He sat near the back behind a wall of dryers, his eyes darting to every face that walked in. Paranoia wasn't new to him, but this time, it wasn't imagined. He pulled out the notebook. Not the original. That stayed in a safety deposit box, but a duplicate worn at the corners with certain pages removed. Contingency planning had become a habit, like brushing teeth or lying to yourself that things were okay. He flipped to a page near the back, something most people missed. It looked like a scribble, just overlapping symbols, but it was a map, a diagram of networked energy flow that didn't just power homes. It connected them, houses as nodes, communities as grids, power that adapted to demand, moved like water, responded like code. It wasn't just about electricity, it was about independence, and that was the problem. He remembered the woman in the photo, Maya, software architect, his partner, in the lab, in life. She had seen the potential before he did, but when the project got buried, she'd walked away. Disappeared. No goodbye. No closure. Just gone. Now the photo had her in it, and that meant she wasn't gone. Not to the people watching him. He closed the notebook and stood. He had to find her. But someone was already finding him. Back at Google, Sundar sat in his office, the light from his screen reflecting off his glasses, his hands steepled under his chin. Something was wrong. The meeting, the interruption, the compliance officer, none of it checked out. He'd reviewed every protocol. No one from legal had scheduled a briefing, and no one named Michael Doyle worked for them. He tapped a few keys and pulled up internal logs. Nothing. Then cross-checked badge access logs for that floor. Nothing again. Whoever had taken Aaron aside wasn't part of the company. That made it personal. And that made it dangerous. He stood, grabbed his phone, and dialed the only number he kept unlisted. The voice that answered was deep, calm, and carried a faint Australian accent. "You calling means it's serious," the voice said. "I need you to find someone." Quietly. "Who?" "Aaron Becker." A pause. "The guy from Tesla?" "Yes. But this goes beyond cars. Something's coming. I don't know what yet, but it's moving fast and it's not friendly." The voice didn't ask questions. It just said, "I'll find him." Aaron arrived at a public library in Oakland. Not because he needed books, but because it was one of the last places where you could use a computer anonymously. He logged into an old email he hadn't touched in 6 years. The inbox was dusty, mostly spam, but buried deep was a single unread message. No subject, no name, just a string of numbers and a location. 397639 degree on N, 104.995 degree W, rooftop, June 11th, 8 p.m. It was today, in Denver, and he knew exactly who had sent it. Maya. She hadn't disappeared. She had gone underground, and now she was calling him back into the storm. But as he logged out, the computer froze for half a second longer than it should have. Just a flicker. Enough to set off every old instinct. He left immediately, took side streets, changed trains twice. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling. Somewhere, someone was watching him. And they weren't trying to stop him yet. They were waiting, which was worse. Miles away, in a warehouse filled with blinking monitors, a woman stared at a thermal satellite feed. "He just bought a bus ticket to Denver," the technician said. She didn't turn, didn't blink. "Let him go," she said. "Why?" She finally looked at the screen. "Because the trap doesn't work unless the mouse steps inside it himself." The rooftop and the reckoning Denver felt different. The air was thinner, crisper, like it knew how to keep secrets. Aaron stepped off the bus with nothing but a backpack, a burner phone, and the feeling that he was walking into a chapter he hadn't written. Not entirely, anyway. The coordinates had led him to an old hotel downtown, one of those places where the elevators creak and the carpet still smells like 1979. But the rooftop was clean, freshly swept. Someone had been there recently, and she was waiting, Maya. She looked exactly the same and completely different. Her hair was shorter, her clothes simpler, her posture more guarded. But her eyes, they still held that same fierce clarity, like she could calculate a room before she even walked into it. They didn't speak right away, just stared. Then softly, "You came. You called," Aaron replied. A single lamp buzzed beside them, the city lights flickering in the background like distant stars. She sat on a folding chair beside a laptop and a hard case the size of a carry-on. "I've been watching you," she said. Aaron didn't flinch. "I know. So has someone else. Then you know we don't have much time." She opened the hard case. Inside was a sleek metal drive, smooth as a river stone. She handed it to him like it was radioactive. "This," she said, "is the real version of your battery system. Not the notes, not the prototype, the full one. Every line of code, every module, including the part we never showed Tesla." Aaron swallowed. "You kept it?" "No," she said. "I hid it. After they blacklisted you, I knew they'd come for me next. They did. So I went dark, used your old encryption system to bury the data in a network of decoy servers. Took years, but it's all here." He stared at the drive. "Why now?" "Because the people who buried your idea, they're about to resurrect it. Badly. Unethically. Dangerously." She tapped her laptop. A series of schematics flashed. Similar to his own, but wrong. Rushed. Unstable. They're planning to roll it out under a new company. Same tech, different name. Except they skipped the safety protocols. It's like wiring dynamite into your walls and calling it progress. Aaron's hands tightened around the drive. "Who's behind it?" Maya hesitated, then said the name. A name he hadn't heard in years. A name from the Tesla board. Dev Misra. Aaron nearly dropped the drive. "Dev? He was on our team. He vouched for me. He sold you out," Maya interrupted. "And now he's building his legacy off your work. He thinks you're broken, invisible, finished." She stepped closer. "We need to prove it's your tech. We need to show what they took. But we only get one shot. After this, they'll shut everything down, maybe worse." Aaron looked down at the rooftop. Cracked tar, old gum, 3 pigeons fighting over a French fry. He'd spent years pretending he didn't care anymore. But now, holding that drive, standing beside the one person who hadn't abandoned him, he felt something he hadn't felt in forever. Not rage. Not fear, conviction. "Okay," he said. "Let's burn the lie down." Maya smiled for the first time. "Good, because we're already broadcasting." She turned the laptop toward him. A stream was running. Live. "To who?" Aaron asked, startled. "To everyone who needs to see it." "And who gave you the platform?" A voice came from the shadows. "I did." Sundar stepped into the light. Not in a suit. Not in CEO mode. Just a man with a purpose. Aaron blinked. "How?" I said. "I believed in you," Sundar said. "And I meant it. We've got servers ready. Media lined up. My legal team's on. Stand by." He walked to the edge of the rooftop. The city hummed below. "You want to be anonymous forever?" he asked. "Or do you want to own the truth?" Aaron looked at Maya, looked at Sundar, looked at the drive, And then he reached down, only for the laptop screen to go black. Maya cursed and ripped open the back panel. "Signal jammed," she said. "They're here." A low hum filled the air. A drone. No, two. Then headlights at the far end of the rooftop. Black vans. No logos. They moved faster than we thought, Maya whispered. Sundar didn't move. "You got a backup?" Aaron pulled out his notebook. "Always." "Then let's get off this roof." They turned, only to find the door they'd come through. Locked. Sealed from the inside. Someone had planned this. Someone expected them to come. The break and the beginning, the door behind them clanged shut with the mechanical finality of a prison gate. The hum of the drones grew louder, more distinct. Sharp wings slicing the air above them, circling like vultures. Below, the black vans idled in silence. No shouting, no orders. Just waiting. The kind of waiting that means they've already won. Aaron didn't panic. Not this time. Fear had been part of his life for too long to be new. Instead, he handed the notebook to Maya. She opened it with shaking fingers while Sundar stepped toward the edge, scanning for exits. There were none. 3 stories down, no adjacent roof, no fire escape. "They're going to take it," Maya said quietly. "Everything." Aaron looked at her, then at Sundar, then at the tiny blinking light still glowing faintly on the edge of the laptop. "Not yet," he said. He knelt by the case and pulled out a secondary drive. Smaller, encrypted, and something else, wired with a low-range transmission booster he'd hidden between the padding. He hadn't told anyone, not because he didn't trust them, because some things had to stay buried until the last second. "I uploaded a mirror file to the blockchain," he said. "Failsafe, distributed, encrypted, pinged off a dozen decentralized servers. All I need is 2 minutes of broadcast time, 2 minutes and the code goes public forever." Maya stared at him. "You had that this whole time?" "Insurance," he said. "Or maybe faith." "So what's the plan?" Sundar asked. Aaron stood, holding the tiny transmitter. "We stall, or we run, or we jump, but we don't give up." The drone descended. Just one now, hovering a few feet above them, light pulsing red. It spoke in a calm, robotic voice. "Please hand over all drives, devices, and documents. Non-compliance will result in detainment." Aaron took a breath. "Hey, Maya. Yeah? Ever feel like maybe we weren't the crazy ones?" She smiled. "All the time." And then she threw the notebook off the roof. It spun like a paper, burred through the air, pages fluttering open in the wind. The drone lurched, recalibrated, began to follow it. At the same time, Sundar pulled his phone from his pocket, opened a secure app, and typed a single phrase. "Open mirror port 34. The laptop flared to life. The signal jumped. "We're on," he shouted. 2 minutes. But from the rooftop door, a figure emerged, tall, suited, expressionless. Devi Misra. His hair was neater, his suit tighter, but the eyes hadn't changed. Cold. Efficient. He looked at Aaron like a man looking at an unfinished equation. "You should have stayed down," Dev said. Aaron didn't move. "You had your chance," Dev continued. This ruins everything." "Good," Aaron said, "because everything you built was stolen." Dev stepped forward, gun drawn, not pointed, just visible. A reminder, a threat dressed in logic. Maya positioned herself between Dev and the laptop. Sundar moved behind the transmitter, shielding it with his body. "Don't do this," Dev said. "We can clean this up. Quietly. You don't have to be a martyr." Aaron's eyes locked on the screen. Percent uploaded. "You don't get it, do you?" he said. "This was never about me. This was about what the world could have had, and what they still can." Dev raised the gun. Maya didn't move. 6%. Dev's hand twitched, and then the rooftop exploded in white light. A spotlight, a helicopter, media, a dozen cameras. Someone had leaked the location. Sundar's legal team, maybe his contact with the Australian accent, maybe even one of the people watching the live stream. It didn't matter, because now the world was watching, and Dev couldn't pull the trigger, not with that many lenses pointed at him. He lowered the weapon, turned, walked away. The stream hit 100%. The transmitter blinked once, then died, and the code, Aaron's code, belonged to the world. 1 week later, the footage had gone viral. The story hit every outlet. Disgraced engineer exposes global energy cover-up. But that wasn't what Aaron cared about. What mattered were the messages pouring in. Scientists, teachers, kids from villages with no stable power saying, "We can build this. We can use this." Maya was already drafting open-source documentation. Sundar had offered a foundation to fund the tech. Aaron declined the board seat. He didn't want a corner office. He wanted a workshop, somewhere small, somewhere honest. He sat alone now, overlooking the ocean, watching the wind turbines spin slowly in the distance. He didn't know what the future held. He just knew it wouldn't be written by fear anymore. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a fresh notebook, and started to write again.